Hi readers, welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads, and welcome to a rare makeup-free episode and my March reading recap. Makeup-free because I got up this morning, had to work, and I just didn't feel like it. So, anywho, there is a chance that this stack of books, I think there are 18 here, could fall over during this video, but I'm going to try to keep that from happening. And because there are so many, I'm not going to read the blurbs on what the books are about, but I'm just going to tell you my feelings about them. So I started the month with a book that I had high hopes for, but ultimately let me down. And that was Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaghy. This got high ratings, and I feel as though people either loved it or hated it. And I was on the did not like it. Although there were things in here I liked, it just wasn't a hit for me. It was a little fantastic and not in a good way. I particularly did not like the ending. I felt like I went through all this and the ending just was a no-go for me. Unrealistic. And I can deal with some unrealistic things in fiction, but this was just a little absurd for me. Next up, I wanted something that was not absurd, and so I went with a rom-com. I've got a lot of rom-coms-ish this month, so I read The Launch Date. And now I'm not sure I remember much about it. Anywho, in this one, Grace is, trying to vie with her competition, of course, the hot guy, for an app in her company. She wants to be the one to develop this app. It was a cute, light read. If you want something that's fun that you can read in an evening or two, I definitely recommend The Launch Date. But now let's get to the good stuff. So yesterday in real time, which is April the 2nd, today is April the 3rd. Yes, no, I don't know what the hell day it is. Today's April the 2nd. Or today when this video post will be April the 2nd. So the short list for the Women's Prize for Fiction 2025 will be announced. I bought Nesting on a whim before the long list was announced, and I did not realize that this was on it. Once it was published, the long list was published, I picked this up to read. I'd already had it in my collection. This book is about a woman who's trying to leave her emotionally abusive husband. And that's part of the problem is he's emotionally abusive and a gaslighter, but does that really count as abuse? And so this is her struggle. Her name is Clara Fay, and I absolutely loved this. I admit, I finished this in a night. I do admit that I skimmed through some periods because I got very anxious in a good way about what was going to happen to Clara. Highly recommend it. I hope it makes the short list. That's the first I've ever read of Roisin O'Donnell. I do not know if she's written anything else, but I'll keep her on my watch list. Next up, last year's winner of the Women's Prize for Fiction, Brotherless Night by Vivi Ganeshananthan. I absolutely loved this. I felt it got a tad long, but I was okay with it, ultimately. And this was a heavy, heavy book. I learned things that I did not know about the Sri Lankan Civil War. Number one, that there was one. Prior to this, the only thing I knew about Sri Lanka is that Duran Duran set a video there just prior to the Civil War, I believe. I also learned that the Sri Lankan Civil War was much more complex than I'm aware of. Excellent book, highly recommend it, but settle in, it's going to take a minute. After Brotherless Night, which was very good but very heavy, I took a couple of breaks and read first a YA, Say a Little Prayer by Jenna Voris. This was also a new release. I think it went straight to paperback. LGBTQ plus book. Riley has left the church, not only because she's bisexual and realizes she doesn't fit in at the church, but also because they kind of kicked her sister out for having gotten an abortion. Then Riley, who apparently can't handle her emotions, punches a girl at school, and as punishment, she has to go to a spring break camp with the church. Cute read, light read, a lot of laugh out loud moments, and literal laugh out loud moments, and just a great fun YA book. But I still wasn't ready for anything heavy, so I went to my bookshelf and picked out Love and Other Conspiracies by Mallory Marlowe. She has another book coming out in fall in the same kind of trope. I can't remember the name of it, but if I see it in the wild, I'll pick it up because this was very cute. In this one, Hallie, there's gaslighting in this too. Gaslighting is a theme, I think, that I realize I really like. Kind of not really a theme for this month, but Hallie gets dumped by her boyfriend, she also produces, and so she has to end up finding another show to produce because they can't be together. And she finds Hayden Hargrove, who's a cryptid expert, and they go around together trying to find cryptids and make a great show and a great story. Recommend. Another on the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction 2025, and one I sincerely hope makes it to the short list and wins, is Nusaybah Yunus's Fundamentally. I had an absolute blast with this book. I actually recommended it to some friends from book club this weekend because they were looking for another read. The main character in this, Nadia Amin, has written a book published a paper about how to a de-radicalization program for ISIS brides. So the UN comes calling and says, okay, put this into effect, go to Iraq. There's so much humor in this book and so much stuff that I could relate to because I've seen characters like that. The negative reviews I saw on Goodreads were all about, this is serious. People in the UN don't act like that. Oh, sister. If you've ever deployed, you know that people will people wherever they are. Anywho, this has an ending that's a little... I said before about Kristen Hanna, she can write an improbable happy ending and I'll be glad for it. The same is kind of true with Fundamentally. There's a happy ending that I'm like, fuck it, I'll go with it. Loved this book. Absolutely loved it. I think this may go down as one of my favorites of the year. Next up is a new release from an autobi author for me. That is Philip Fracassi and his The Third Rule of Time Travel. Now, I have to caveat this, that Philip Fracassi is an autobi author for me because in the early 2020s, I read A Child Alone with Strangers, and I absolutely adore it. It is one of my favorite books, period. It's the young boy in that Henry stole my heart, but the downside is that every other Philip Fracassi book I rate against that, and they're all good. That has got just a higher bar for me. However, The Third Rule of Time Travel was a really fun ride. Scientist Beth Darlow has recently lost her husband. They had worked together on a time travel machine. Not physical time travel, but time travel of the consciousness. And there are 3 rules. 1, you can only travel to a point within your lifetime. 2, only for 90 seconds. And 3, you can only observe. And those rules can't be broken. But then Beth starts finding out that things, when she comes back from these traumatic trips that she takes, things in her life have changed. Why? Anywho, good time. If you like books about time travel, one of the blurbs on these says that it is like part Blake Crouch. I totally got those vibes in the very best of ways. And then I began the journey that would take up much of March, and that was my Abby Jimenez journey. I don't have the book here, but last summer I read just for the summer, and I was taken aback. I've said this several times. I was taken aback because there was real trauma in there, and I was expecting just a light, fun rom-com with some minor, there's always got to be some kind of conflict, but I wasn't expecting it to be so real. So I listened to other people talk about her books and how much they liked them, and they liked them for those reasons. So I picked up Part of Your World with adjusted expectations, and I was not disappointed. I absolutely loved this book. Loved it. Part of Your World, as you can tell from the cover, a big city girl meets a small town guy. Her family has expectations for her that don't include marrying some inn owner in some small town. But great book, really loved it. If you've not read Abby Jimenez, I highly recommend it. And then I wasn't done. I had the second book in this series. So the Part of Your World series is 3 books. Part of Your World, Yours Truly, and Just for the Summer. So I'd had this a long time. I did not realize they didn't have to be read in order, but I didn't realize that it would probably have been better if I read them in order. That Yours Truly stars Alexis's best friend, Brianna, and a new doctor in the hospital that they work at. Alexis doesn't work there anymore by this book. But, so again, they start a letter writing thing, and he's got anxiety. I thought that would bother me more than it did, and it didn't bother me at all. But another just really, really good read by Abby Jimenez. Did take a break from Abby Jimenez, but she'll be back. I didn't want to burn myself out on her because I usually don't binge authors. So I picked up a book I've had for a long time, and this cover is so deceptive. The Bad Muslim Discount by Syed Masood was a fantastic read, but again, it wasn't what I expected. This gives me LGBTQ vibes. This gives me happy vibes. This gives me maybe a rom-com. It was not any of that. It was a great story about a young Pakistani boy whose father relocates them to the United States. He grows up in the U.S. He becomes kind of a bad Muslim. And a young Iraqi girl who ends up coming here illegally and trying to deal with this situation that she finds herself in. And that is all I can say without spoiling it. This book is very serious, but it's also got some really funny parts in here. I loved the young boys. Well, he's Anvar. He starts out a young boy. He grows up in this novel. I loved him. I loved his Nana. That might not be what he calls her. And there's a betrayal in this book that I wasn't going to get over, but Anvar gets over it really quickly. Highly recommend it, but do not go into this with this cover thinking it is a lighthearted book. It is a lot more serious. Loved it. I'm trying to figure out what led... Oh, yeah. So I was watching the Tube of You, and somebody mentioned Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This led me to my current nonfiction read, which I don't have with me because there are 18 books here. But but that book is called The Women with Silver Wings. Great Circle is about I guess it's a pair of twins, but it really focuses more on the female one, Marion, who learns to fly and loves to fly. And it is an epic novel. It spans a lifetime, literally. And I really enjoyed it. 4 stars, I think I gave it. But it is settle in. Settle in. It contains some real characters. It goes from their youth through World War II till the end of their lives. And so it is a very, very good book. This was a Booker Prize finalist. I'm not sure what year. But on Marion's side, the focus is flying and what she did so that she could devote herself to that. And that's all I would say, but I really had a good time with this. It took me 2 or 3 nights to read, and I just had to sit down with it and settle in. Not a quick read it by any means. Another book was my nonfiction book for April. Nope, for March, sorry. That my boss actually recommended to me based on a podcast that he heard. That is Paris Undercover, a wartime story of courage, friendship, and betrayal by Matthew Goodman. He started this trying to research the history of a book called Paris Underground, which I have, but it is over in a pile somewhere. And what I thought I was going to do was read Paris Underground and then read Paris Undercover. I'm glad I did not do that. I will go at Paris Underground at a later date with a totally different perspective on it. But this was fascinating. I recommended it to my book club, but we are reading Radium Girls instead, which just broke my heart. I'm listening to it. But this is fascinating. There's gaslighting in here, too. You just don't realize it. I did not get what this is going to come out wrong. I'm going to say I didn't get what I expected out of this because I had expected a different story, but I loved the story that I got. This is about 2 women, one an English woman, Kate Boniface, and an American woman, Etta Schreiber, who are living together in France, not as a couple. Etta's husband has died. I can't remember why Kate invited her to move in, but they're living in Paris when the Nazis occupy Paris, and they start helping British airmen or paratroopers, pilots. Let me get my shit together. They start helping British pilots escape Nazi-occupied France and get back to freedom. Naturally, they get caught, and this is a story about how they get caught, how they get released. The book, Paris Underground, that was published by Americans and in Etta Schreiber's name. And this is fascinating. I highly recommend this if you are interested in the French Resistance, in women in war, in World War II history. It is remarkable what the line that Kate set up in such a short time and operated for only a short time. It's also, at the end, it's a very sad story because the friendship is broken and it's never regained. And it's just really sad. And then it was time to go back to Abby Jimenez. After I read the first 2, I went to the bookstore and I bought all her other books that they have. I think she's got a few short stories or novellas that are out there, but they're on Kindle, and I've just given up on trying to read Kindle. So I went with the first Abby Jimenez book, The Friend Zone. I absolutely loved this book too. I love now that I know that Abby Jimenez writes about real people problems and issues that arise from them and challenges. Now that I know that and I'm expecting it, I adore it. So Kristen in this book is about to have a medical procedure that will stop her from ever having children. And then she meets this awesome guy who wants a big family. And so even though they hit it off, they have to stay in the friend zone because obviously he wants a big family. She can't give him one. Loved this book. But this one, which is second and related to the first one, was a disappointment for me. And I'm going to tell you why. I have not seen or read Abby Jimenez do this in any other book, but the male main character in the Happy Ever After playlist was a jackass, and I didn't like him, and I would have left him. Here's why. So, the main female character, Sloane Monroe, is also in the friend zone. In the friend zone, you find out that she loses, tragically, her fiancé to a very bad accident. And I felt that Sloane deserved better than what she got. So she meets this musician. She doesn't know he's a musician. There's a puppy involved. I also love that Abby Jimenez includes dogs in all her books. But there's an incident. This is some spoilers. If you don't want to hear it, you can skip ahead a minute or two so you see me put this down. So the guy does not tell her the whole truth about his life. There's an incident that happens with his ex, and it ends up being splashed all over the papers. And she's like, "Why didn't you lie to me?" He was like, "Well, I just didn't tell you. That's lying. I'm gisting here." And then he says, "You just need to get over it." And I tell you this, I'd get the fuck over it all right. Maybe I would have been okay with that when I was 26, but I'm not putting up with that bullshit either. And then later on, there's a phone call between he and her, and he says, this is when I'm like, I was done with him. He was like, "I need to know you will do whatever it takes for us to have a life together. Like, why don't you do something, motherfucker?" I'm very disappointed. To the point that I almost did not pick up Life's Too Short to read. But I thought, you know what? Life's too short to be mad forever. Let's see if Jimenez can redeem herself, because the other books that I read, the Part of Your World series, were after this, and they didn't have any jackasses in it. This book redeemed Abby Jimenez in my eyes. So Vanessa, the main character in this one, has lost 2 family members to a debilitating disease. And at the beginning of this novel, she thinks she's beginning to get the signs of that disease as well. And her half-sister has left her with her infant, and so now she's kind of grounded, can't do her travel blogging stuff like she used to. But then she meets the hot lawyer next door, and of course she can't get involved with him because she's gonna die. And you don't want to do that to somebody else. Anywho, very cute. Hot lawyer was a nice guy. He, redeemed this whole situation that I was in with being mad about what happened to Sloane. So, right after I finished Life's Too Short, we had book club, and another book club member recommended Definitely Better Now. I need to tell you about something. When I went to book club, this is not right after Life's Too Short, I picked up another book that I've since stacked a whole bunch of books on top of, and I can't pull it out here. And I gave this book 3 or 4 days. It is also on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list. I can't see it making the short list, but stranger things have happened. And I DNF'd it, like I said, after 3 to 4 days. I got 100 and some odd pages in, a long way in, and I just stopped because it was plodding along, and I didn't care what happened anymore, and I hate that. So I put that down, and so I was reading that. We had book club. Another book club member told me about Definitely Better Now by Ava Robinson. I got home the next night, put down Birding, which is the DNF, and I picked this one up immediately. I ended up really liking this book. This is a book about recovery, and it's about the main character's character development in essence. And it got off to a slow start for me, probably because I had just put Birding down. What I should have done is finish the evening watching TV or something like that, kind of letting my palate cleanse, and then picked this up. Because when I went to pick this up the second night, I flew through the rest of the book. The main character in this is called Emma. Emma is just at 1 year sober, and she's trying to, or kind of coming to the realization that everything's not magically better now that you're sober. There's still some work to be done, and she's starting to stand up for herself and come to terms with good and bad relationships in her past and present. And I really, like I said, really enjoyed the whole second half of this. Probably the last 3/4 of the book. It just took me a little bit to get going. So glad for the recommendation. I'll keep Ava Robinson on my watch list because I'd like to read more from her. And finally, this won't be included in, I will include it, even though it's a March read. Oh, fuck, I don't know. It may or may not make my weekend books next week, but I finished it off with The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje. This was a Booker Prize winner. I think it was 1992. There were some things that I really loved about this, but it was a long book, and I think I ended up just giving it 3 stars. I totally see why it won the Booker Prize. It's non-linear, so sometimes I didn't know when I was. My favorite story in this is Kip's story. There's 4 individuals. You've got Hannah, who's a nurse and just kind of burnt out from the war. Speaking of burn, you have the English patient, who is badly burned, and I'm still not quite sure what happened to him. It's very confusing, and because it jumps around and it is non-linear. You have, I guess, Caravaggio, the thief, who has some relationship to Hannah. I don't think he's an actual uncle, but he's an uncle figure. He knows her family and he knew her growing up. And then there is Kip, who is the Sikh sapper, an Indian sapper is what they call him. And I think he's Sikh. Maybe I just made an assumption in that because of the turban. I don't remember. But his story was the one I really liked the most, and that's kind of how the book ended. I'd like to really read some more reviews of this and think about how I feel about this. I'm also on the fence about, do I want to watch the movie? I've never seen the movie. Anywho, that is my March reading recap. A lot of books in March. It's a longer month, but I also read a lot of really quick reads. All the Abby Jimenez I could read in an evening because they just were so fast-paced, and I really like that. And maybe that also is why the slower paced books like The English Patient and Birding, which I put down, maybe that's why they didn't resonate with me so much. I got so used to fast. Anywho, that is it for me. This was a lot of books to talk about. I tried to go through as quickly as possible. And, yeah, that's a lot. Anywho, that is it for me. I will be back next week with whatever. And I'd love to hear what you're reading. Did you have a great reading month like I did? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, if you've stuck with me this far, thank you for sticking with me on my journey. Happy reading.